Fast Money starts right now, live from the NASDAQ market site overlooking New York's Times Square. I'm Scott Wapner. Let's bring in a man who was born to work in this industry, Smoke Wallin.
Right now, we're building our business, and we're focused on executing our plan. And this is the biggest growth opportunity of any category I can remember in my lifetime. And I'll go back to Prohibition.
Vertical plans to go public and list its shares on the NASDAQ. Smoke Wallin is with us. He's the president and CEO. Back in the 90s, you were at Seagram's, the liquor business.
Yes.
I'm so grateful for this industry, and it was an honor to be named by UCLA as one of the top 10 health advocates for women in the country.
We're working very hard in a bipartisan way to either get the FDA or the Congress to act.
But there is a relatively new cash crop that has some seeing green and Wall Street eyeing a potential new wave of profits. Frank Holland is in Murray, Kentucky for us.
U.S. hemp production has more than doubled since Congress legalized the crop last December. As much as $32 billion worth of cannabidiol, or CBD, could be sourced from the hemp at this farm in Murray, Kentucky, and others around the country.
We're growing hemp, we're harvesting it, we're extracting the CBD, and then we're putting it into our brands.
Smoke Wallin is the CEO of Vertical Wellness, a company focused on CBD products manufactured from industrial hemp.
When someone is suffering, and they can turn to something to ease that suffering, no matter red state, blue state, Republican, Democrat, man, woman, young, old, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't you say, yes, of course, I want to relieve your suffering? Hi, my name is Jack Maxwell. I once had this job hosting a show on television, going around the world, meeting people, learning about their culture, sharing their booze. Traveler or not, you might have seen it. It was a great gig. I was working, having fun. Life was good.
Folks, my next guest tonight searches for the world's most interesting drinks as the host of Booze Traveler. Please welcome Jack Maxwell.
Then I went from here to here in the not fun version of musical Cheers. What happened? I got cancer.
You remember me from long ago. We've been here before, been down this road. Finding our way home. Gonna take the high road. Take a ride with me on this high road.
So, Jack, it's so great to have you here for the Lo&No Beverage Alcohol Summit. It's a fun conference that I agreed to speak at, but I'm so honored that you agreed to join me and do a little back and forth about the topic that I agreed to speak on, which is, brands and innovation and distribution.
Well, you know a lot about that, so you have the hard part. This is easy for me. I like to have a couple of cocktails, so all this kind of stuff is always interesting to me. But for this thing specifically, I guess it's called the Beverage Innovation Conference. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, as you can appreciate, the lifeblood of the beverage industry is innovation. And you've got lots of great brands that exist out there that are tremendous brands, but the future is always about what's the next thing? What's the next thing? So, this conference is all about how do you think about that? How do companies that are already in the space develop the next innovation, and how do entrepreneurs build their brands and take on the future? And, all the innovation typically happens at the entrepreneur's level, which I believe in and support.
Yeah, I know you were part of the beverage industry for a long time. So give us a flavor, if you will, of what that's like and the innovation that has to go with it.
Yeah, so as I spent a lot of years in the beverage alcohol space, and we built $1 billion wine and spirits distribution company and had a lot of brands, and got to merge that into what is now $11 billion company, and got to see kind of brands from the big guys and also lots of innovative new brands that came out from nowhere and then big guys bought. So it's been a wild ride, and it's been great to see kind of every aspect of the business.
But now a little bit of a different story. You run Vertical Wellness. So how did you go from beverage and alcohol to hemp and cannabis? That must have been an interesting decision to make.
Well, for sure, and you can appreciate it. Obviously, from Booze Traveler to your current project, which is pretty exciting, and we've been able to participate in. Yeah, I mean, look, I sold my last whiskey and vodka business, and my wife turned to me and said, "We got to look at cannabis." And so I spent a bunch of 6 months looking at the industry and networking and figuring out what was next, and jumped in with both feet at the end of 2017 and haven't looked back. It's really exciting, and there's a lot of innovation happening, but there's a lot more innovation coming. And I think a lot of beverage innovation around this space of cannabis, hemp, CBD.
Now, I know that if we could turn back the clock for a second, back where you were you were a beverage distributor. I know at one time you were, if I'm correct, chairman and president of the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America. Did I get that right?
That's right, WSWA. I got to serve our industry in that capacity, and it was a great honor. And I learned
as far as distribution goes, how does that play into brands and innovation? Distribution, because I think that's something people don't think enough about. They just know it shows up at their liquor store or whatever. How does that work?
Well, yeah, and it's the real key, right? So there's a lot of great ideas out there. Turning an idea into a brand is a big task, but turning a brand into something that actually is in the market and in front of consumers at the point they can sell it is all about distribution. And that's one of the things that new companies don't think about. And I think it's one of the most important aspects of any success. You can get everything right. You can get the liquid and the packaging and the branding and all those things correct. And you can get it in front of the consumer at the point of purchase when they might buy it. And you got a 50-50 chance of any brand. But if you don't get it at the point of purchase when the consumer might buy it, AKA distribution, you have no chance. So distribution is the key to any innovation. You've got to be able to get distribution.
Sure. The one thing I love about, anything, I suppose, is coming up with new ideas, innovation, brands, etc. And I know that entrepreneurs are always churning the waters, trying to come up with new brands, new ideas, new whatever. But they also need partners in that. They also need, when there's acquisition or partnership or anything like that, what should they consider? Because entrepreneurs sometimes are creative. What should they think about on the business side of that?
Yeah, right. There's lots of examples of where things have gone wrong, where an entrepreneurial brand or company launches, it gets a lot of success locally, and then as they go forward, they don't think through their distribution strategy, and they're not with the right people, or they don't take the right channel approach. So those are all really important considerations that brands happen, and there's lots of examples of both good and bad of those.
I'm sure there are many horror stories with that. Can you give us an example, maybe, if you want to, of an acquisition that maybe went wrong?
Well, maybe one of the biggest examples of something that went awry was Snapple. So Snapple was one of the hottest brands in the 1990s.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it was a phenomenon, and it grew, and it was like explosive, and it was very organic and very quirky with their marketing. And in sometime along the way, Quaker Oats decided to buy it. Now, Quaker Oats was a very successful brand company. It owned Gatorade, which, they understood beverage. It was a big category, and they had done very well with their Gatorade acquisition, which they had.
So what went wrong?
Well, what went wrong was Quaker Oats Gatorade was a direct to warehouse brand, and they didn't think through the distribution part. So when they bought it, they said, "Oh, we'll just do what we did with Gatorade. So we'll take Snapple, we'll take all the chain business, all the big grocery chains, and we'll take it out of the distributors, and we'll give it to our direct sales force and sell it into the warehouses." So they called all the distributors together. They said, "Hey, we're Quaker Oats. We just bought this. We own Gatorade. We want you guys to give us the rights back for the grocery channel, and still sell to all the convenience stores. And the distributors revolted. So this was a fundamental distribution strategy fail. And add to that, they lost contact with the consumer. They changed the branding. They made it very generic. They fired, they had Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh. If you can imagine, those two both were spokespeople for this Snapple brand, which made it really fun because it was quirky. They had all sides of the political aisle and craziness. They fired them both, and they made the marketing generic, like a big company might. So the bottom line is they paid something like $1.4 billion for Snapple. 3 years later, they sold it for $300 million. Ooh. And that's why PepsiCo today owns Quaker Oats, because it ended up putting the whole company in play, and they ended up selling Quaker Oats because they made this terrible mistake. Now, the guys that bought Snapple, Triarch, bought it for $300 million, grew it, and was able to sell it for over $1 billion 3 years later. So you really got to think through who your partner is when you're exiting. Now, I suppose the Snapple folks, if they got mostly cash, I guess they're okay. But if you want your brand to succeed long term, you really want to have the right partner.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the thing too, because if it's your baby and you created it, you grew it, you got the right people to support it and the right celebrities involved, that just unless it's just a money play, which I'm sure sometimes it is, you'd want it to keep going. It's kind of a legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I think there's probably good stories though as well, right? Give us a good example of one that went well.
Well, there's lots of them, but the one that's near and dear to my heart, because I was a distributor back in the day, and we sold a little brand called Jägermeister. Well, it was a great brand. It was a lot of fun.
I've heard of it.
But Sidney Frank, the company that had Jägermeister, they came up with a premium vodka that they launched in 1997 called Grey Goose. Now, everybody knows Grey Goose today, but it didn't exist in 1996. They launched it. We rolled it out in our markets. And of course, it became a very hot brand very quickly. Well, 7 years later, Bacardi bought it for over $2 billion. And, everyone was like, that's crazy. They paid over 25 times EBITDA. It's like the most inflated price anyone's ever paid. But if you ask Bacardi today, they would say it was probably their best acquisition they ever made. Why? They didn't change the distribution. They did change it to their distributor. So in some cases it was, with a Sidney Frank distributor and Bacardi was on the other side, but it was the same model. They didn't change the model, and they didn't change the fundamentals of the brand. It was the best of the best, and Bacardi kept that as they took it. So they took it from 1.5 million cases to 4 million cases in 10 years. And so it was a huge success. And Bacardi would tell you, I think today would say that was the best deal we ever made, even though they paid over $2 billion for it.
Somebody knew what they were doing.
For sure.
That's a nice success story. But let's leave it on an uplifting note. Any other final thoughts for the Lo&No Bev attendees today?
I think as Henry David Thoreau said, the question is not what you look at, but what you see. And entrepreneurs see the potential, the white space, the new ideas. And that's why the big companies that are at this conference are here, because they're looking for new ideas and new innovation. And the entrepreneurs are the ones that come up with that. But it's really important to tie any partnership with a big company to a strategy that fits the brand. And it has to make sense: distribution, branding, all those things. So I think that would be my parting thought. I'll leave on Thoreau.
Good stuff to leave on, Thoreau. And thanks. That's quite the education. And when we get together, let's have a cocktail, teach you some more, huh?
Well, thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. And here's to you.
Cheers. I'm out of cocktails. I'll have to go get one. All right. Speak soon. Cheers, my man.
Cheers, brother.
How was that?